Cheese is one of the oldest and most fascinating of all natural foods, and many of the finest benchmarks are still made by hand, the old-fashioned way, using unpasteurised raw milk. The reason for their enduring reputation is undoubtedly flavour. You only have to taste them to know they're really different to modern industrial cheese. However, traditional cheesemaking is under threat. So I'm on a mission to share this extraordinary world of dedicated and passionate farmers, cheesemakers and mongers with my daughter Ellie, before it's all gone. The foundations of the dairy industry in the United States began here in beautiful New England almost 3 centuries ago. And by a strange coincidence, the region has become the centre of an exciting new revolution in artisan cheese. I've come back to visit Vermont a decade after I last filmed here to see what's changed.
So, Dad, what did you do here last time?
We did mainly the new farmhouse cheesemakers, but the two that really stand out to me are Jasper Hill, which had just started, and a company called Vermont Butter and Cheese, which has since become Vermont Creamery.
As Dad and I drove towards Jasper Hill Farm, he explained how the Puritan colonists of Massachusetts Bay first began making farmstead cheese in New England during the early 17th century, and how it was the foundation for cheddar to later become the most popular cheese in the United States.
Known as store or rat cheese, its reputation was changed forever in 1851, when a farmer named Jesse Williams designed and built a large dairy to produce cheese using milk collected from surrounding farms. The extraordinary success of this new business venture quickly led to the development of the global cooperative cheese movement and changed forever how cheddar was made. Within 2 decades, American cheesemakers had become world leaders in low-cost, efficient industrial production. But there was one hidden cost that went unnoticed in the name of progress. Sadly, cloth-bound farmstead cheddar became virtually extinct. Last time we were here, in the cellar at Jasper Hill, were, I think, 6 cloth-bound cheddars, and since then, they've become really popular. You find them all over the States, and funny enough, we were there, we made a comment about it in the show, but we didn't realise at the time that they were going to become something so great. Over the past couple of decades, there's been an astonishing renaissance in American farmstead and artisan cheese. And today, Vermont is home to more than 70 small cheese dairies, more per capita than anywhere in the US. Jasper Hill Dairy and Cellars was established in 2002 by brothers Andy and Mateo Kehler, and lies near Greensboro in the picturesque rolling hills of a region known as the Northeast Kingdom of Vermont. The dairy ticks all the boxes for producing interesting cheese with a genuine sense of place. When I first visited, it was a brand new family enterprise with an ambitious vision to make farmstead cheese using only raw milk collected from the farm's herd of 45 Ayrshire breed cows. The cheeses tasted sensational, and so it was no surprise they quickly attracted a lot of consumer interest. But at the same time, the brothers had quietly let us know they were running secret trials on a new cloth-bound cheddar made by the local Cabot cooperative. Little did I know that this unique partnership would redefine the reputation of Vermont as the centre of North American artisan cheesemaking. How does it come that you have a cooperative working with a small artisan dairy?
Over the course of 18, 20 months, we developed this cheese, And the basis for our collaboration with Cabot is what enabled us to finance this facility. You know, this speaks a lot to the ethos and the culture at Cabot, where they understand that what's good for the dairy industry in Vermont is good for them. And they really brought a rising tide lifts all ships approach to their support of artisan cheese making in the state.
By definition, genuine farmstead cheese is made on the farm using only milk from the farm, whilst cooperative cheese is made on a much grander scale using milk collected from dozens of local farms. What makes the Jasper Hill and Cabot business relationship so special is that this cloth-bound cheddar is made by a cooperative using the milk of only a single farm before it's carefully cloth-bound and ripened in the maturation cellars at Jasper Hill.
Cabot cloth-bound is really the engine. I call it like the donkey that does the heavy lifting, that enables the agricultural and economic development around artisan cheese making at the cellars to occur.
The success of Cabot cloth-bound cheddar has enabled the brothers to build one of the most impressive maturation facilities I've ever visited. The 7 concrete vaults that radiate in a huge half circle cover an area of more than 20,000 square foot, and more than 50% of the space available is dedicated to meeting the seemingly insatiable demand for Cabot cloth-bound cheddar. It's also helped them realise their original goal of developing tangible economic benefits for the good of the local agricultural community.
The last time I was here, it was just the family and maybe 3 or 4 employees. How many have you got now?
We will be at 55 employees by the end of the year, so in the next 3 months. It's one of the most exciting things about what we do is the impact that our business has on such a small community. We've been talking about community building since we first purchased our cows, and now it's clear the impact that this economy has on just our small local community.
20 of these ladies will be...
All the milk for the Cabot cloth-bound cheddar is sourced from a single farm in nearby Glover.
So I'm guessing the reason you were chosen as the farm for the Cabot cloth-bound is because of your quality of milk?
I think it was a combination. I think the quality was certainly a big part of it, but they also wanted a batch, one amount of milk. I think it was 40 or 45,000 pounds, which is about what we produce in 2 days. Also, our butter fat is on the higher side, and the protein level is pretty good. So it was a combination of quality and quantity.
All good quality cheese starts with good quality milk from healthy animals. And this was one of the main reasons Matt's farm was chosen for the project. His herd are fed a strictly controlled nutritional diet.
So it's like the cow's got their own dietitian.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
And we test our feed, and then we balance our ration. I mean, one of the things about dairy farming is it tends to be the same old thing, day in, year in, and so to have something like this is special and gives you more to be proud of.
Earlier in the day, Dad and I dropped by the Cabot's Visitor Centre to check out the dairy and some of the cheddar available for tourists to taste.
So this is our collaboration with Jasper Hill. It's actually in a wood circular crate, and it's about 6 months in there. And then from there, we send it over to Jasper Hill for their caves.
And where do they do the cloth bounding?
At Jasper Hill, yep.
Okay. Wow.
That's got more sweetness to it.
Yeah, that's that classic Helvetica starter flavour. It helps mature the cheese more quickly too.
A lot of nutty notes in there too.
Oh, well, that's the cloth bound.
Yeah.
That's what it does. Instead of, that's why I ask about the plastic, because when you vacuum pack cheese, put it into a bag, it basically stops that release of moisture. But when you cloth bound it, it means it can breathe, and there's this interaction between the cloth and the mould on the cloth and outside, and it sort of dries out and becomes nutty. Something like this.
Yeah, and the texture is a lot more.
It's that lovely crumbly
flaky,
texture.
Yeah.
So do you think you'll cloth bound any other cheeses, or?
Well, I think that remains to be seen, but we're off to a good start. And Jasper Hill, they're all about quality, we're about quality, so when you put that together, it's a good product.
Great combination.
The past decade has not been without major challenges for the brothers, including a proposal by the National Food and Drug Administration to ban the use of wooden shelving for aging cheese, and a review of the regulations allowing the sale of raw milk cheese.
If you look at what we have in this vault, it's 5 miles worth of wooden shelving if you stacked it end on end. So the idea of purchasing 5 miles worth of stainless steel to sit on for one space, it was in the millions of dollars.
It blew up in social media, and the whole issue went away in 36 hours. It was a real eye-opener for us to see how the power of consumer and public pressure can create some kind of accountability for a government that may have a political agenda here.
I asked Mateo what he thought was the biggest challenge to their business moving forward, given the attitude of the national food authorities towards the use of raw milk in farmstead cheesemaking.
At this point, we consider the biggest risk to our business to be the federal government. That's really complicated, and it's well highlighted in what happened with the FDA's attempt to ban wooden shelving for ripening of cheese. There would be no more Parmigiano Reggiano in this country. There'd be no more Gruyere. There would be no Comté. There wouldn't be any cloth-bound cheddar. It highlights the degree to which regulators are completely ignorant of the food that consumers are interested in consuming and purchasing.
To better understand the reasons for the increasing legislation in the US dairy industry, I asked one of the country's foremost food microbiologists for her opinion.
There are trade issues, it's certainly political, but it's not scientifically supported. And if you actually look at cheese-associated outbreaks of foodborne illness, they're very rare events. Certainly here in the United States, it's Hispanic-style cheese, made illegally, distributed illegally. To look at that as a cause for why we need to turn the whole industry on its head is just irresponsible. The science doesn't support that.
Despite the success of Cabot cloth-bound cheddar, the production of farmstead raw milk cheese still lies at the heart and soul of the brothers' cheesemaking philosophy. While some of the original soft-ripened raw milk cheeses are no longer made, Jasper Hills' flagship Baylee Hazen Blue has become a national benchmark treasured by consumers across the US.
What we find is that when this cheese gets cut at retail and is exposed to oxygen, it just blues right up. So it's not that the blue isn't there, it's just you can't quite see it.
You know, Ellie, the first thing that strikes me about that, in terms of blue cheese, it's quite low in salt. Is that deliberate?
It is. A lot of blue cheese is what I call mugger's cheese, where it whacks you in the head and then you look down in your wallet, it's gone. This cheese is really intended to highlight the quality of our milk, and a lot of people that don't like blue cheese love Baylee Hazen Blue because it's not aggressive. It doesn't have a lot of metallic, traditional blue flavors. And, you know, this cheese is quite young still, so.
It's fantastic. It's lovely and creamy, herbaceous.
A tiny bit brothy then.
Yep, because there's not another cheese out there that's got both the texture and the qualities that Baylee Hazen Blue has.
Well, you can't make enough.
We're having a hard time making enough cheese, and it's a particular challenge because we're coming into the holidays, and you know, a lot of people like eating blue cheese around the holidays. So.
I've got the answer for you. Put the price up. Let's have a taste.
All right, I like that answer.
It's quite remarkable how the reputation of Jasper Hill Dairy has grown over the past decade, and there's clearly no sign of this stopping anytime soon. The brothers' most recent venture is an incubation dairy at the local Centre for Agricultural Economy, where they've created a range of new artisan cheeses made from pasteurised milk. But intriguingly, they plan for these cheeses to be made in purpose-built community farm dairies in the not-too-far-distant future. And of course, that includes plans for the use of raw milk. They've also partnered with Vermont Sterling College, where students learn about cheese making and sustainable land management.
Sterling College was among the first colleges in the United States to focus on sustainable agriculture. Because of our location, we have these wonderful opportunities to partner with Cheesemakers, in particular with Jasper Hill. And so we have 2-week intensive courses where students will come and study a single topic like cheese making, like fermentation, like charcuterie. And now there are students all around the country who've been exposed to their practices and are able to think about either refining what they're doing as cheesemakers now or launching a cheesemaking business with that as sort of the point of reference.
When I last visited Vermont to film, I spoke with Professor Paul Kinstead, an author and expert on American cheese. Ellie and I caught up with him at Springbrook Farm to discuss what changes he'd seen in the local dairy industry. I've been enjoying your beautiful new book, and I've brought my daughter Ellie to show her your wonderful world of cheese.
Fantastic.
Lovely to meet you.
Welcome. Lovely to meet you, too. Welcome
Thank
to
you.
Vermont. When I joined the faculty at the University of Vermont, 1986, January, there were 5 what we would classify as artisanal cheesemakers, 3 of which were new upstarts, and they were radical at the time. They were farmhouse or farmstead, on-the-farm cheesemaking. You know, this crazy thing that had disappeared in America, and that's what I was confronted with, and I didn't know quite what to make of it. Now we're approaching 70 artisanal cheesemakers in this little state of ours. The economic impact, the direct impact is substantial. The indirect impact in terms of its influence on, the ripple effect, multiplier effect on tourism and the foodie culture that is so much part of Vermont, it is absolutely astonishing. I've been blessed to watch this, and we have incredibly innovative cheesemakers, great people.
One of the great people Paul is referring to is Alison Hooper of Vermont Creamery, formerly known as Vermont Butter and Cheese. Alison's dairy was best known for making fresh, pure goat's cheese and cultured butter. As demand for her products have increased over the last decade, it's become increasingly difficult to source fresh goat's milk. In response, the company has built a state-of-the-art model farm run by her son, Miles.
Last time I was here, you were just making cheese. Now you've got a dairy with your son.
Yeah, we figured out how to make cheese, so we thought we'd blow it all by getting a farm.
Yeah?
We have struggled to find enough milk to keep pace with the demand for the cheese. So we decided the best way to solve that was to just get right into the business and feel the pain with the dairy farmers.
Feel the pain with your son.
That's right.
What do you reckon about that, Miles?
Yeah, that's about the size of it.
This is a great laboratory for us to transition from conventional feed to non-GMO feed. Miles is growing some non-GMO. He's sourcing non-GMO commodities to be able to distribute them to the other farms. This is a place where we can try things and understand the cost of doing business that way and understand what kind of premium we need to pay the farmers in order to get them to transition.
Another of Alison's long-term dreams was to build a modern dairy that would allow her to develop traditional goat's cheese, working with the most fragile and delicate surface moulds. This has now resulted in several highly successful new cheeses.
So this is the Bombe Bouche,
Yes.
your best-selling mold-ripened cheese?
Our favorite, yeah.
Your favorite.
So Alison Hooper, she went to France as an intern and she discovered all those amazing cheeses, including geo-rinded cheese. Geotrichum is the type of mold that grows on the outside of the cheese to create that wrinkly rind. And she loved it and said, one day Americans are going to want to try those cheeses and love it. And so she played a little bit. I think when you came, she was already on the R&D mode of it.
Yeah, because this place is super, super hygienic.
Yeah.
It's like you can't move without covering something up.
Exactly.
And washing this and washing that.
Yeah. Like we're in
Look at
quarantine.
you.
Here you go. Yeah.
And the reason for that is the mold.
It's the geo. So if you put a cheese in the room, everything is going to grow on its mucor penicillium, and geo is going to be the last one to come and grow on the cheese. So you really have very tricky.
So what happens to the cheese after this?
So probably in an hour or two, we're gonna take the rings off, and then we're gonna sprinkle ash and salt, and then we're gonna go to drying and aging room. This is the cheese that Joey just ashed a couple minutes ago, and tomorrow you're gonna flip them, correct? Yeah. And we're gonna ash the other side. It's almost like a panna cotta, you know, the texture, it's very moussey because it's hand-ladled. The goal of this room here is to dry the surface of the cheese without drying the inside and prepare the cheese to develop the rind, the geo rind, that is what we live and breathe for.
Growing geotrichum mold is really tricky. And what's fascinating about visiting this creamery is that they've got 3 different rooms to do it. The first room is where the cheese is dried for 3 to 4 days. Then it's moved to this room, which is a high humidity room and starts the whole mold growing process. They stay in here for 10 days. And the last room is they're cooled right down to almost 0 before packaging overnight.
So you can see the difference between this one, it starts with a coating, but it's not wrinkly yet, versus this one, it's a little more wrinkled, and then we're gonna go to the next step, which is cooling it to make sure the rind stick to the paste.
People talk about wrinkles being a bad thing. Well, you could say when it comes to cheese, wrinkles aren't a bad thing.
Wrinkles are sexy.
Wrinkles are
Wrinkles are
sexy.
sexy.
Yeah, that's our marketing campaign.
Yeah. Only in Vermont.
I wish.
After touring this purpose-built modern dairy, it's easy to understand why Vermont Creamery has developed such an amazing reputation for a unique range of goat's cheese and butter.
Obviously, we must try this one here, the Bambouche. You can do the honours. Because
Okay.
this is the one that we saw in the
Bambouche,
creamery.
Yeah, we saw this in the creamery. It's French for a good mouthful, or sort of a little tasty bite. It's got those beautiful wrinkles, so we know it's going to be nice and yeasty and delicious, right?
Really, really dense, creamy,
A little bit of salt.
and with that lovely fresh finish.
Yeah.
So one of the things with growing this geo rind, and correct me if I'm wrong about this, Alison, is that when you grow a geo rind, it's very hard to wrap it. So you see traditional geo rind cheeses in France or all around the world, they're always in a box where the actual wrapper doesn't touch the edges. Otherwise it goes all soggy and sticky.
Yeah, we'll suffocate it. Okay. Right. When we ship it from the creamery, we need to give it time to ripen in distribution. So by the time it gets to San Francisco, it's perfectly ripe. And this cheese is a little more dense. And dry on the outside, it's not going to grow a very thick, wrinkly rind. It's going to have a little smaller wrinkles on there.
I was wondering
When we started making this cheese, we put a splash of ash on the top of it, and people thought there was something wrong with it, or it was a blue cheese. And from time to time, you get spots of blue mold, which in France is very normal, to see those little specks of blue mold. In the United States, it's not welcome in the retail store.
People think
Maybe
it's wrong.
only for people who are very, very knowledgeable about cheese.
That's lovely.
Wonderful cheese. Really, really good.
Beautiful. Thanks, Alison.
No wonder it's so successful.
Vermont is certainly spoilt for choice when it comes to innovative and passionate cheesemakers. And there's no question that barring too much interference from the authorities, the future of these wonderful artisan cheeses is looking good.
Everybody wants safe food, the appropriate level of public safety. Can we have that and also have traditional practices in cheeses? That's the question. I believe yes, but that remains to be seen.
Dairy farming is no longer economically viable for a lot of families. With value-added products like artisan cheese, that trend is being reversed for the first time in a long time. Here's an economically viable way to keep lands working and open. And I look at the artisan cheese movement across the country as doing the same thing in areas like this where there haven't been jobs. Suddenly, lots of people are being employed because for every wheel of cheese that's produced, you have jobs in advertising, promotion, distribution, marketing. I look at our congressional delegation who has worked so hard to secure federal funds to make businesses like this, help them be viable. And this regulatory activity is undoing all of that for no good food safety reasons.
Unbelievable. That's what I'm doing.
Before that, we do physical maturation. 2, 3. Woo, woo! 2, 3. Woo! There's your woo.
Go, the woo! What's going on?